Well, season 2019 is winding to a close with only a few weeks left, and the Swans have had another loss, this time to the Cats. We stuck with them for 2.5 quarters, but the class of the Cats started to shine through in the end, while the Swans' forward line and contested ball woes were heavily exposed. Firmly entrenched in the bottom four, the Swans are already looking to the next year, with players starting to have injuries managed already. Will Hayward's gone out with season-ending surgery, Callum Sinclair the same to his shoulder, and Buddy Franklin is still questionable for a return. You're listening to the Swans Blog's SwansCast, the original independent Sydney Swans fans podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm joined tonight by Tasmania's biggest football nerd, Stephen Park. Steve, another week, another loss, mate.
That's right, Josh, but that's the way it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles. That's what happens when the fat lady sings, and sadly, that's the way life goes.
Do you reckon she's got a name?
The fat lady?
Yeah, we should name her.
Yeah.
Like Hilda. Some kind of Austrian thing, some big chick standing on a mountain yodeling.
Marge. I like Marge.
Marge is singing.
Marge is singing. So Marge has sung, and well, basically, life is going, and we are doing strategically well, actually, I would say, Josh.
Strategically in what way?
Well, we're actually having really good, consistent losses, but we're having losses, and we are getting ever so close to the bottom two positions.
I see what you're doing there. So we need Gold Coast to... They almost got it for us this week. We need Gold Coast to win for the rest of the season because we can't have those bastards from Queensland stealing our inheritance of the number one pick.
That's exactly right, Josh. And I look at it this way. They actually have looked at it, and strategically, Melbourne and Carlton can actually still make the 8.
True. Very true. Are we saying that we're strategically losing? Is that what we're saying? So we're not tanking, yes, but strategically losing.
I would say that, and that's why we're not playing Menzel. That's why we're not playing a few of those boys. But they'll get a game this week. But I reckon that's what's going on.
You might be onto something there. Certainly, I was cheesed off to no end this week to find out that Will Hayward's been playing all year with a hip injury, which according to Horse has been causing him pain. And once we were firmly out of the finals race, well, then we decided to send Hayward for surgery. And he also admitted in that he hasn't had a preseason since he started with the Swans.
Yeah, so what's actually going on here then? So we're playing a guy who is half to a third fit in a team. He's actually looked very poor over the last 6 weeks. We continue to play him. Then we have people in the reserves, in the NEAFL, dominating, like James Rose, who could fill Will Hayward's spot very easily. Dan Menzel, who's kicking, on average, 3 or 4 goals a game. And some of these other young kids that we could actually blood, rather than playing someone who's less than 50% fit. Come on, Horse.
It's been a bit strange. Our injury management's been a little bit strange for a few years now. But I definitely agree with you on the Menzel thing. If Hayward's not fit and he's got an injury and he's playing in pain and you're not looking like you're going to play finals anyway, why not just belt Menzel around the field and just give him the game time? Or get Amity or, even Wicks. Could have elevated Wicks. He showed some stuff. It's just been bizarre. It's been really bizarre this year.
I agree. And I love Dan Menzel. I think he's an amazing player. He's actually been through a lot. And the only reason he's played in reserves is A, he hasn't been match fit, but B, he's so used to having a structure where the ball is kicked down his throat that he hasn't had to worry. And you look at when he's actually played, and the possessions he's actually had have been first class. But when this non-structure of our forward line makes him look like a dill, it's not him at all. It's actually the way we structure up.
Yeah, I agree. He won't be crumbing around the feet of any tall forwards in our team, will he? So it's the best game he played this year was when Hayward was out with his jaw, and we played Menzel on the wing in Hayward's position, and he looked all right. And then we stuck him back down the front, and he was no good the next week, and then we took him back out of the team. So it's been a bit strange. But anyway, on to this week's game. What do you think? Wasn't a good game.
No, I'd actually disagree, Josh. I actually think it was a terrific game.
For strategy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, the first quarter was outstanding.
Yeah.
We played really, really hard contested footy. We looked really good. We couldn't kick very well. But the problem was that drifted away. How many times this year and this is a question for you, Josh. How many times this year have we been up at some stage during the first quarter?
Well, I'm tipping probably most games. I don't have those kind of stats in front of me, but I'm tipping it'd be quite a few games.
I can tell you for a fact that we have been up in 11 games this year. Some of them we've been up by up to 5 goals.
Yep. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. See, that's why we have you around, because you have stats like this. You are a nerd. There's no question about it.
The problem is, though, Josh, our second and third quarters this year have been absolutely abysmal.
Mm.
Now, tell me, what's the problem there, Josh?
How long you got? Look, probably 2 things again. Three, and it's been the same 3 things for the last 2 seasons. Drop-offs in effort, getting smashed around the contest, and disposal efficiency by foot. Now, weirdly enough, this week, our first half was pretty good. Our first quarter was definitely better than the second, but it was pretty good. And despite the fact we were getting smashed in clearances and hit-outs, we were even at half-time on contested possessions, like dead set even. And then we finished up the game -30. And for me, that was between that and Tom Hawkins, that was the game.
Yep, totally agree. The other concern for me is we had free-flowing, open football in that first quarter, which enabled us to score. Our defensive pressure was outstanding in the second quarter, don't get me wrong. But what actually happened with our forward line and our movement of the ball forward? We went back to the same old play. We didn't go through the middle like we did in the first quarter. We went out to the wings and we took it a big round loop. When we play up through the middle, we look outstanding. As soon as we go into this lockdown mode, we actually struggle. We kick out to the wings and we go around and try and score from the boundary line.
Yep.
We get found out every single time.
Yep.
When we go through the middle, we have those players running through. We actually look like we can score, and our small forwards do the work.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely agree. The Cats are probably responsible for that a little bit. They definitely set up outside our defensive 50 better in the second quarter and pushed us wide like every other team does when they come to the SCG. But the thing that's starting to drive me crazy about this particular thing is that the SCG is our home ground. It's a strange size, set of dimensions. It's different from every other ground in the competition. And for some reason, we can't find a way to play on it anymore.
That's because we're used to bigger, wide open spaces, and we can't play in the small, congested. We've actually tailored our game around one particular player, Josh. Who is it?
Well, that'd be the skipper.
It's not the skipper.
Wait, hold on.
Who have we...
Oh, well, no. Well, I thought you were talking about sort of the midfield contest, but if you're talking about Franklin...
That's exactly right. We've actually structured our entire game around one player. Well, the thing is, that particular style of play doesn't work on the SCG because it's too small and compact from one end to the other.
Yeah, I don't even know whether we've actually structured around him that much. I just think that, when we're in trouble, Franklin makes a miracle occur and then things sometimes work out our way. I don't think it's that organised. I just think Franklin's a freak when he's fit, but this year he's not fit.
Yeah, sadly.
So probably the first quarter, or the first half rather, was pretty good for us, and the first 5 minutes of the second half was reasonable. But the Cats midfield just got on top. They just demolished us at every stoppage clearance. We basically lost it. And like I said, we were even for contested possessions at half-time and ended up finishing -30. Anybody who we put in the ruck couldn't get their hand on the ball. McLean had a pretty decent first quarter. He had 6 or 7 hit-outs. And I'm not sure he had another one before three-quarter time. And I actually wonder if he got a corky, because Asava Radagolea absolutely smashed his knees into him in a couple of ruck contests. And McLean was noticeably flat and no good after that. Melican was a real worry in defence. He's devastatingly low on confidence these days. Rampy was just way too undersized for Hawkins. He tried his heart out. Almost tried his eyeball out when he took that massive falcon in the face. It probably really highlighted just how much we miss Grundy, or a player like Grundy, in our backline, I think. But it started off with a lot of promise, and I thought we were a reasonable chance for a win this week, given Geelong's woes over the last month or so. But they showed by the end of it there's a reason why they're number one on the ladder.
They also showed by the end of it that last week's game against Fremantle, and I'm talking about the Swans here, was actually not very good at all, really, when what happened with the Western Bulldogs. But just going on your point about Grundy, it actually does show you how much we actually miss having a player like that in the back line. Rampy is your great intercept player. He is not your main defensive weapon. And I'm sad to say, but I don't think Melican is going to develop into that.
No.
He needs to go back to the NEFL, and he needs to actually play there and actually get some real confidence. The problem is, though, the only time you're ever going to get any confidence in the NEFL playing on the back line is when you play against the Brisbane Lions, because the NEFL is an absolute garbage competition for AFL standard players.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, isn't it? I couldn't agree more on Melican. I cut him an awful lot of slack this year and hoping he'd start to come good. But I've lost my patience for him the last 2 weeks. He's a real Melicant. And I think a lot of that's probably not of his own making, though. So he was injured pretty much all of last year. A year where he would have had Grundy and Smooch for most of the year directing him around the back line and teaching him. Who does he learn from now? Like, who is the big, tall, key defender we've got that this bloke can learn from? It's nobody. And unless we go out and pluck someone from free agency to come and do it, I don't see where he's going to get the improvement from.
You're right, and I actually think the big concern for me around Melican is not so much that we don't have someone else. He just doesn't, A, have the leg speed, but he just doesn't seem to have the tactical nous to be able to play with someone, because you watch the players take off on him, and then he runs behind them and he gives away the free kick, or he gives away the 50-metre penalty, or he's 5 metres behind his opponent.
Yep.
Because he's stuck watching.
Yeah, he reads his opponent, not the flight of the ball, so his opponent's always got 3 or 4 metres on him before he reacts. It's a tough situation to be in. I was really happy to see Stoddart come in a couple of weeks ago, but he really showed this week that he's not there, which is a shame. He's got good athleticism and he's a pretty good ball user, but he doesn't have time and space in the AFL, and he doesn't have the physique to stand up to the contest either. So I think young Riley's going to be a couple of years away yet. Just physically immature, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I don't think he reads the play very well either.
No, not yet. He's had flashes though. I think I reckon he's still worth persisting with. Certainly, I think he's still on our books till at least the end of next season. So I think he's a selection more through need than want at the moment. Ronky Tonk, he looked pretty good for the first half and then absolutely butchered a certain goal. And I think that got in his head because he was pretty disastrous after that goal after that ball into the post.
He just rushes everything. Everything he touched, he rushed. The only time he actually looked any good was when he actually took a set mark. That was fine. But everything else he did for that game was completely rushed, like he was scared he was going to be tackled.
Yeah.
Which is what happened the last time he played.
Yeah, just no composure. Youthful and experienced, I guess. He mind you, he's not the only one on our team. Maybe he can learn some composure from Dawson, who was just magnificent again. But it looks more like he's been learning from Jones.
That's exactly right. I'd say the same thing. But seriously, I've decided Dawson is the GOAT.
The GOAT.
He is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. He is going to become one of, if not the best player the Swans have in the next 5 years.
I want to see them try him as an on-baller next year. We played him as a big-bodied mid in the NEFL, not last year, the year before, until he did his shoulder, and he was magnificent. And he could be the all-round package we need. Maybe the package we need is actually on our list. He can kick, he's good with his hands, he just reads plays really well. I'm in love with this bloke. He is my new man crush. He is my replacement for Dan Henneberry. We just can't say enough about Dawson this year. And this week he's the only Swans player who polled coaches' votes with 3, which was ahead of Dangerfield. So he had a pretty damn good game.
Yeah, and it's just his composure and the way he's able to read the play, kick the ball, he's able to take overhead marks. He is a true find. And the thing is, I bet you he's the first player picked each week, because you look at what Horse does. When they're in trouble in the back line, Dawson's down there. When they can't get the ball into the forward line, Dawson's down there. When they need him in the midfield, Dawson's in there. He is the go-to man.
He is at the moment. And someone needed to be this week. Our experienced midfielders were having reasonable games statistics-wise, but I got to say, they weren't having much impact, though. Isaac Heaney I thought he was on the bench for the first half. I think he had 6 touches at half time. he had a great fourth quarter, no question, but was missing for large patches of the game. That's got to be the worst game Papley has ever played for us. He must be injured. It's the only thing I can think of. I thought Kennedy wound back the clock a little bit, though. He had a pretty good second half.
See, I would actually say that's where I disagree with you, Josh.
Right.
I'd say this, and I'll come out fighting here, and I know that our listeners are probably not going to like this, but I'm actually of the opinion that Kennedy needs to come out of the midfield. He is now, he's reminding me, like Heaney and him are two players. Like, I love Josh Kennedy, don't get me wrong, and I think he's been great for our club, and he is a stalwart and he's going to go. But the problem is, he's not having anywhere near as much impact as what he used to. When he actually gets a possession, I don't think he uses it well, aside from the fourth quarter this week.
Yep.
But how rare is that now that he actually has a major impact on the game? And Heaney, he's a flash-in-the-pan player. He's a gun. But he turns it on for 10 or 15 minutes a game.
Yep. No, I actually don't disagree with you at all. In fact, I think at the end of last year, you and I talked about Kennedy, and we sort of felt that it might be time to start pushing him up into the half-forward line a little bit more often and let someone else come and try the clearance work. Anyway, Kennedy's still in the middle. And
that's right. And this is what needs to happen, I think. And I think if we keep him on our list, if we do not trade him out at the end of the year, this is what needs to happen. I could see Horse doing a Clarkson next year, and I'm not saying he's going to, but here's my ideal situation. Trade Kennedy out and actually go to a club that you could actually win another premiership with. Put him on, and if that doesn't happen, put him on a forward line and actually show some of these young kids how to actually tackle, how to actually win the hard ball gets, and actually instruct our forward line. Because that's what we're missing in our forward line, someone to actually control the play. You put him down there, he doesn't need to be magnificent, but he's going to be a darn sight better than Kieran Jack has been lately. And not that he's playing now, but that's what he was in the forward line for, was to actually instruct those young kids.
Yeah.
Well, you put Kennedy down there, then you put someone like a Dawson, or even a Jones for that matter, into the midfield. You're actually going to put some speed back into it, because that's what we're missing. Because I don't think if you keep battering Kennedy around, it's not going to get any better now.
Yep. Yeah, food for thought. I'm not opposed to it. I don't think there's any chance of him ever being traded out, but certainly, look, nothing to lose now. Just mix up the midfield and just try something different. I like the idea of Jones in the middle. Yeah, I really liked it in 2017 when we used to run Lloyd off the back of the square as well. He really injected some speed through there. So, not a terrible idea.
Josh, he is one person I would get rid of. Lloyd?
Yeah. Moving on.
I've lost all faith in Lloyd.
He's having a strange year. Anyway, we'll move on. We might bring Lloydie up later on too, actually. Stats in the game. Do you want to go through these, bro?
So, Josh, stats from the game. We've had -3 inside 50s, 48 to 51, which isn't too bad, I guess. The efficiency inside 50, -9. But we had several shots on goal that didn't even make the distance. Jake Lloyd.
Ryan Clark.
Yes, Ryan Clark. That was another bad one. Hit-outs, -33. The worst part of it, we only won one centre bounce, Josh.
Yeah.
One. The centre clearances weren't too bad, though. Only -3, 12 to 15. So our midfield did all right, especially in that last quarter. I thought our midfield in the first and the last were actually quite good. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't mind our centre clearance work. Our work around stoppages was just garbage. It's been pretty garbage all year, though, and I don't understand what the difference is, besides the fact there's more bodies around, but that used to be our bread and butter. And largely the personnel we've got in the middle were winning those same clearances last year, so there's no real reason as to why we're getting belted consistently, and it's not like it's only happened since Sinkers went out. This has been a season and a half worth of problem, and it's just unrectified.
Yeah, I'm not sure of it either. I just don't know whether it's... I think what used to happen is we used to read the play off the opposing ruckman. I don't think we do that very well anymore.
No.
And I think that's where it's actually fallen apart. Because let's face it, over the last 3 or 4 years, we haven't had a good ruckman.
No, we haven't. We haven't had a good ruckman since the year before we got rid of Mumford.
That's exactly right. And now I look at it...
We made another 2 grand finals, though, in that time.
Yep, but what let us down in those 2 grand finals? A lot of it was our clearances.
A lot of it
and
was
our work
clearances.
Around the stoppages.
Yep.
And if you actually look at it, if we're not actually reading the play from the opposing ruckman, we're not actually getting a major advantage. And we try and play this stoppage game where we actually bottle it up, but it's not our strength anymore.
No, I absolutely agree there.
Anyway, contested possessions, Josh, minus 30 for Geelong, who are not a very good contested possession team.
No,
that worries me.
Yeah, and it was even at half-time as well.
Yeah. So what's that actually saying is that Geelong, who are probably the best and most skilled team at kicking the ball, who stay away from contested possessions, actually pummeled us in the third and fourth quarters around contested possessions. That is not very Swans-like.
No, I think it felt like there was patches in this third and fourth quarter where our intensity definitely dropped around the ball, and it was in those moments where we really got flogged. It's the most frustrating part of our game this year is the contested stuff. And like I said, the personnel we've got there shouldn't be getting belted like this, but they are.
Yes, Josh, that's right. The concern for me is, and this is a sad spate on our club, but I actually just don't think our midfield's very good. I think our midfield has really dropped off. Kennedy, as I said, he's not getting any younger. Parker is a great bits and pieces player in the midfield. He's had some really good games this year, don't get me wrong, but he is not your leader of your midfield. Then where do you go from there?
Yeah, no, he does have a maddening tendency to go missing for sort of 10-minute patches. But certainly in our dominant years, when the big three was Parker, Kennedy, and Hanbury, you could always count on one of those guys just to stand up, and we don't really have that ability anymore. We don't have those minutes where one of those 3 guys is absolutely dominant, and often 2 of them would be absolutely dominant at the same time. But we've got a middle of the ladder midfield at the moment, and a bottom of the ladder forward line is just the way it looks.
That's exactly right. I would actually say, I'd go the other way around, and I actually say middle of the road forward line and a bottom of the ladder midfield, because the reason our forward lines struggle is because our midfield are kicking it into them in absolutely abysmal positions. I actually don't think our forward line is that bad. Like, you think about it.
Oh, when they're on the park, they're not that bad.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. When they're on the park. But even these young kids are not bad. And I tell you, the one that needs to go back to a different position is McCartan. I actually think I like him as our centre half back.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that at all. And certainly, if Sam Naismith can have a couple of years where he's not injured, Sinclair's going to be down front. So you'd end up with, at least for the next 2 years, Reid, the Chief, and Buddy down there with rotating mids. Dawson's a pretty good mark and kick and small forwards, and Ronk and Papley, and yeah, so it wouldn't be a bad forward line, but our midfield 4 connection's been trash for a couple of years, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah, that's right. Here's my tip for this week, Josh.
All right.
McCartan down back, Menzel into the forward line, which is what they actually got him to the club for, Horse. Remember that. You put him there to teach the young kids about the forward craft. So Menzel into the forward line, and because O'Riordan's out as well, because you know that, right, don't you?
Yeah.
He's been ruled out as well.
Yeah, quad, yep.
So I reckon we will have James Rose come back in, and we'll have Zach Jones will play permanently back for the week.
Fair enough. And with that little bit of wisdom, we might stop and have a quick break.
Blind spider took the wheel, navigating grass blades completely by feel. Got a sassy chassis, sparkle in the sun. All 4 small ball fat tires, rocking through the sand and burning up. Little dune bug out in the sand. A little blue dune bug out in my hand.
And we're back. Steve, my favourite part. I actually like the Heroes and Villains segment we do, and I'm really interested to see with what you've got to say with your hero for the week.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I think this is going to be somewhat controversial and funny, and I like it. But my hero for the week is Patrick Cripps. Again, the guy's just a machine. He turned on one of the best individual performances from a midfielder you will ever see. Just his stat line is just phenomenal. He's got 39 disposals, 24 of those contested, 18 pressure acts, 12 clearances, 7 tackles and a goal, and he could have had 2 or 3 goals as well. Just was a phenomenal game. That bloke, he puts that club on his back and just carries him to the line. You know, almost Josh Kennedy like, but better.
I agree. He is going to be an amazing player. If he doesn't win the Brownlow next year or the year after, there is something wrong with the way the AFL works.
Do you reckon he could be the next dual Brownlow medalist?
I reckon he could win 3, Josh.
Yeah, lock it in, Eddie. Your hero, bro?
You'll love this one, and I'm sure some of the fans out there will get a good laugh out of this. My hero, and this goes out to my good friend Glenn, who's an Adelaide Crows supporter, but my hero is Don Pike. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because I actually hate Adelaide. I do not like them whatsoever. I can't stand Tex Walker. The only player that I have any time for, 2 players that I have any time for at the Adelaide Crows, is Hugh Greenwood, because he's Tasmanian, and Rory Sloane, because he's a really nice bloke when you talk to him. But I think they're arrogant, they're rude, they're obnoxious. And Don Pike, you are my hero, because you are the reason they are losing. You are a dill brain who doesn't know how to coach. You have the best side in the competition by far, and you are not even in the 8. You drop a player like Eddie Betts. Yes, he's been struggling, but that's not because of the way he's been playing. That's because of the way they are structured. Don Pike, you continue to play the way you are playing because you are going to keep Adelaide out of the 8. You are going to wreck the chances of that team that deserve to be in the top 4 easily. So thank you, Don Pike. I love you for it.
I like it. I like that a lot. Villain.
Right.
Who's your villain this week? I'll let you go first.
So, Josh, my villain for this week, it's the AFL.
I think they're everyone's villain most weeks, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. But there's a specific reason why the AFL are my villain, and it's because of the reserves.
Oh, I like this.
Gillum McLachlan and the AFL, you have been in a situation where you could have actually structured a competition where you had your seniors. Then you had your AFL reserves. You would have had your younger players in the AFL playing against other match-ready AFL players. And yet, what you do is you have teams like Brisbane and Sydney and GWS and the Gold Coast Suns, not to mention any of the other VFL or Waffle or SANFL teams playing against players that are not up to standard. The players coming into the competition are never going to get the ability and the organisation and the attitude to actually play elite football when they're brought into the competition, if they play in such competitions as the NEAFL. Gillum McLachlan, you need to change this and change it soon. Bring back the AFL reserves. Forget about your money concerns, because that's the reason we don't have it, and actually focus in on what's best for the AFL and what's best for the players.
Man, you're fired up this week. You're right.
Yes, mate. I just had to get that off my chest, and I had to get Don Pike in there as well.
Oh, fair enough. My villain is so pedestrian in comparison, and that's just... I'm not even going to do it. Let's move on. Swans Blog Player of the Year.
Did I take over, Josh? I'm sorry.
No. I've just got nothing that can go with whatever you've got. Like, anything I say is going to be embarrassing to myself and my family, so we'll just move on.
All right, then. Fair enough.
Swans Blog Player of the Year.
All right.
Do you want to start us off?
Okay, I'll start us off. How about this? Our co-captain, our number one backman, Dane Rampy, with 1 vote. 25 disposals, 5 contested. 11 pressure acts, 7 rebound 50s, 3 tackles. And guess what, Josh? 1 massive falcon that will keep him out of this coming week. An eye injury that was so bad, they're actually a bit scared, sir, according to John Longmire today, and they're keeping him out as a precaution. What do you think about that?
I reckon if we were in finals contention, he'd probably play this week.
I reckon he would too, but I think it's actually a good idea, if it's that bad, that it's actually bleeding behind the eye.
Yeah, look, I don't know what the injury is or was, but certainly, you only get 1 set of eyeballs, don't you? You don't want to wreck them. Let's face it, we're on the wind down. There's absolutely no reason to take any risks with him whatsoever, so I'm pretty cool with it. I think Cameron's going to win the Coleman this weekend coming.
Yep, I agree with you there.
2 votes. The bloke who was so good they named him twice, Mr. Ali. 14 disposals, 6 contested, 5 tackles, 16 pressure acts, 8 intercept possessions, a single solitary hit out. But I thought the fact that he wasn't playing in the ruck like we have been doing lately, thought his intercept marking was pretty influential in the first half, and 2 votes to Ali, I guess.
Yeah, I thought he was quite good, and I'm glad that they didn't really play him that much in the ruck this time. One thing I would actually say is, notice what happened in the last quarter, though.
When we pushed him into the middle.
Yeah, when we pushed him into the middle, back into the ruck.
Yeah, it didn't go unnoticed.
3 votes for Captain Kennedy. I'll be a bit quicker here. Notice I got the 2 captains, Josh. That was pretty good. 28 disposals, 12 contested, 6 clearances, 7 tackles, 18 pressure acts. Probably the most consistent midfielder in a midfield that has struggled for impact. I agree there. However, he is not a shell of what he was 2 years ago.
No, I don't think he is either. And actually, Justin and I covered this a couple of weeks ago. He has moments this year where I go, do you know what? The 2017 version of Kennedy, he would have hit that target. He wouldn't have sent it to that guy. He would have passed it off to the other bloke. He would have kicked that goal. He would have broke that tackle. He's starting to show his mortal. The magic's just not quite there like it has been.
And the sad thing is, he's losing his pace very quickly.
Yeah, and he didn't have much to begin with, and that's a huge issue.
That's right. Number 4?
4 votes. I'm happy to see this bloke getting votes from us. He's almost back to some of the form he showed us in 2017, actually, and that is Mr. Callum Mills, who I really, really, really wish we could unleash as a midfielder. And he gets 4 votes for his 26 disposal, 4 contested, 4 tackle, 12 pressure acts, 5 intercept possessions, and 9 rebound 50s. He's got a bit of his mojo back. That mojo he has where he can read the ball and find targets by foot. I think he's got most of that back. However, now that I've just read this out, I just realised I forgot one seriously big flaw in his game, and that is that penalty he gave up running too far out of the goal square, which gave Dangerfield his goal, was just inexcusable, and I actually regret giving him 4 votes now. So you're lucky, Mills. You won't get away with it again.
The funny thing was, if you actually looked at it, you take in the 10 metres that he actually ran from the goal square, and the distance, I reckon he covered 35 metres.
He probably did.
Having said
that, they let a bloke from Collingwood run from the centre circle all the way, 15 yards into our back 50 when he kicked a goal when we played them.
That's right.
Sometimes
now, Josh,
I think having red on our jumper just gives us away a little bit more than we deserve.
Yep, you're probably right. Josh, drum roll, please. The 5 votes goes to the GOAT himself, Jordan Dawson, the greatest of all team.
Greatest of all team?
The greatest of all team. He's not the greatest of all time, he's the greatest of all team, because he is easily our best player.
Yep, no, I won't disagree there. I love him.
16 classy disposals, Josh, at 88%. 6 contested, 5 pressure acts, 2 tackles, 3 goals, and some serious dance moves. The only player, or the only Swans player I should mention, to actually poll any coach's votes. But it's not about the possessions that he gets, it's about the time he has and what he actually does with the ball.
Yep.
How good is he, Josh?
He's great. There's only one other guy on our team who can sell candy the way he does, and that's Jared McVeigh. And I'd actually say Dawson's better at selling candy than Jared McVeigh. He's better than Willy Wonka at selling candy at the moment. He finds space where there is none on occasion, and his accuracy by foot, I just can't gush over enough. He's exactly the player we need, and hopefully we've got a little bit more of, because Matthew Ling, when he's fit, can actually kick a ball. But Jordan Dawson's inclusion in the team this year has just been phenomenal, and you got to wonder where he would be if it was not for the shoulder injury, which kept him out for most of last year.
Agreed. I actually think we started off last year exceptionally well. If he'd have been in our team last year, and I'm not saying it's definite, but if he'd have been in our team last year, I think we would actually given the finals a much better shot.
Yeah, he provides that. Actually, you compare last week to this week, a lot of the attacking plays set up through our midfield was done by him.
That's exactly right.
Just with disposal efficiency, we got a message to the blog last night from one Travis Bassani wondering about just how accurate those disposal efficiency numbers are. And I was sort of like, I guess close enough's good enough. Until someone pointed out Zach Jones' disposal efficiency. Do you know what it was?
92% or something like that?
Yeah, 92 off 19 disposals. Or might be 94% actually, off 19 disposals. And a part of me really thinks that's got to be an error.
No, it's not. You want to know why?
Why is that?
Check out his kicking efficiency. You want to know what it was?
0.
20-something%. I think it was 26.
So he butchered every kick but hit every handball.
That's exactly right.
You're right. Yep. Sounds about right.
You think about it. Jake Lloyd, his disposal efficiency was up in the 70s as well. The problem is, look at when he was under pressure. What actually happened? He stuffed up every kick. He stuffed up every handball. He would have to be a player that struggles the most of any player I've ever seen when he's under pressure, but then looks so silky smooth when he's not.
Yeah, he's a bit of a no-contact player, isn't he?
He is. That's right.
Well,
honourable mentions.
Heaney, shocking first half, great fourth quarter, 3 goals. He barely had his hands on the ball up until half-time. He only had 6 or 8 disposals, but if we had a chance of winning that game towards the end, it was going to be through his efforts in the forward half. So, honourable mention to him.
Good. Ben Ronk. Now, this young man, I actually was surprised when he was actually a late call-in, but he actually had a decent first half. Should have had 4 goals. Only problem was he rushed a lot, and he showed a lot of run, and he showed a lot of pressure, which was something that he hasn't been doing a lot lately, but his inexperience showed through. The question I have, Josh, we didn't see a lot of this worry that he had in the game and the games that he's played this year, last year, when he was like always picked, but now he just seems to worry so much. What do you reckon that's about?
I'm just speculating here, but he looked really unfit when he came back at the start of the season, and maybe they've put some hard word on him that he wasn't living up to the expectation. He's recontracted at least until the end of next year, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so look, he's only 19, he's just a kid. He'll be all right. Yeah. He certainly wasn't our worst small forward. It's got to be the worst game Papley's ever played for us.
Yeah, sadly. The problem with Ronk is, I actually think it's because he's so unsure about where he sits in the team, and I think that's the problem with Fox too. Like, how many different positions did Fox play on the weekend? He was in the ruck, he played on the wing, he played in the midfield, he played as a forward, and he played as a half-back flanker.
Yeah.
Now, seriously, how are you ever actually going to get set in a position and learn your craft as a young player if that's what you're doing? When he plays in the NEFL, what does he play? He plays on the midfield and he gets 30 or 40 possessions a game.
Yeah.
And he's elite with the ball. And yet, when we play him, we play a guy who's not much taller than me in the ruck. Just because he can jump doesn't mean he's going to be a good ruckman against Blitzarves and Smith and all those guys, or going up against people like Max Gawn. When he is playing in the NEFL, he's an elite kick. Give it to him. Let him develop as a winger or a tagger or whatever. The same with Clark. Give him a role to play.
Yeah, I didn't like the way... I'm glad you brought up Clark, actually. I didn't like the way we played him this week. He's really mission-specific, you know. He doesn't seem to do too well if you just leave him to his own devices. I would have preferred to see him run as a hard tag this week. Because whenever he has that role, he tends to at least match his opponent, but manages to catch his own pill as well, and that certainly didn't happen this week. And back to your point about where you play players in the NEFL and then play them as these multi-role everythings but master of nothing in the seniors. Ronk was the same at the start of the year. Not only was he unfit, we also tried to play him as an on-baller when he's clearly a precious small forward. So
That's right. And I actually think Dawson would be a much better player if he was just suited to the midfield. But we just play him as a master of all. You know who that reminds me of? The Western Bulldogs coach, Beveridge. He does it all the time. Look what it did to Roughhead. Look how much better Roughhead now looks at
With
Collingwood
yeah.
than what he did there. Look, he wrecked Tom Boyd's career because he was doing that to Tom Boyd, playing him all over the show. And I actually say it's happened to a lot of players of the Bulldogs that they haven't reached their full potential because of it. Look what happened with Josh Dunkley.
Yeah.
He's reached his full potential because he just plays midfield now.
Yep, and some would argue that we may have contributed to the demise of Kurt Tippett by swapping him all over the place as well. So, anyway.
That's right.
We might have another break and we'll come back and finish up.
Yeah, there's a few blokes with bumps and bruises, but generally I think we're okay.
What about Will Hayward? Where's he at?
He had a hip operation on Friday, so he's had one done last year, and then he had the other one done. So he was playing with that this season, and he hasn't had a pre-season yet, and so the decision was made to put him in and have the operation and get him right, because it's just too painful for him to keep playing, and just meant he wasn't able to train.
Is that him for the year?
Yeah. Hip operations are. Yeah, he's okay, but he's there for the year.
Any news on Lance, John?
Not yet. He's running, which is a good sign, but I'd still imagine he's a couple of weeks away. Yeah, there's a few blokes there on the injury list that we still think can get back this year at some point and help us. But hopefully he's one of them.
And we're back. Steve, Clown Files time.
Josh, this is actually my favourite part of the segment. Now, I have actually had to listen to these for quite a while, and I've never really got a chance to be involved, but my first one, Ronk missing the unmissable. How could he miss that goal? What was he thinking?
I don't know. I don't know. I think the look on his face was sort of how, he thought, how could he miss it as well, but just didn't need the boo-na-na. Just take a couple of steps and stick it through the middle. I think, as far as learning points go, I don't think they get much better than that.
No, that's exactly right. The problem is, he just, again, rushed it.
Yep.
Rushed the play.
Yep.
Slow down, take your time, kick the goal.
Yep. And this isn't just if anyone's going to get upset that we're clowning a Swans player. We've clowned every player we've come across who's done something similar to this year. I think we've mentioned Ben Brown at least 3 times for similar stuff. So it's not a Sydney Swans thing. It's just forwards should not be missing shots like that.
That's exactly right. And how many times does it happen? How many teams have this type of thing happen?
Way too many.
Seriously.
At least he's not going to show up on the dribble file on bounce anyway.
No, thank God.
Next nomination, Mark Blitzarves. Got a fine for it too. One of the worst dives in the history of dives. It was such a bad dive. He would have scored 0 at the Olympics off the springboard. It was terrible. There's more convincing dives in Power Rangers if you've ever seen that show. Anyone who's got kids or grew up watching Power Rangers, you'll know what I mean. Just a bad look. It was a bad look. So Mark Blitzarves, you're a clown.
Yep, I agree with you. He was a clown, but I actually think there was a bit more to it. And I actually don't think it was our player that did it. If you actually watch the play in slow motion, he actually gets hit by one of his own teammates.
Yeah.
It wasn't Melican who did it. It was, who was it? Harry.
Harry Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, Harry Taylor. He actually copped him in the throat, which is what was the whole thing about. But he thought it was Milliken, which is why he dived.
Yep, and Harry Taylor then, being a bit of a goose, decided to remonstrate with Milliken for something he did, but either way...
That's exactly right.
Well, Harry Taylor's a clown as well then. Next
Yes.
nomination.
All right, goal review. For the 5th time this year, the AFL have stuffed it up again. Now, this comes back to my villain of the week. AFL, what are you doing? Sort it out. Check every point, every goal. Get your systems right. How can it be this hard when you can do it in tennis, you can do it in soccer, you can do it in gridiron, you can have a decent goal review system. They can get the tennis ball down to 0.1 of a millimetre, Josh. Can you believe that? Yet we can't even tell when a bloody ball goes through the goalposts.
Yep. Yeah, I don't disagree. Oh, it's so bad at this stage, I'm all for just getting rid of the system completely, taking all the cameras off the goal line and just doing umpire's call.
Yeah.
Nothing but umpire's call.
That's right. How in the world can it be that in tennis they can actually get it down to 0.1 of a millimetre on where the ball lands, yet in our sport they can't even put some cameras in to show the goal line and actually tell where the ball is? Why wouldn't you just spend the money, AFL, and actually have a decent goal review system? Spend the money.
2 names, mate. McLaughlin and Hocking. Next
Correct.
nomination. Next nomination. Whoever the clown was from Fox or Channel 7 or whoever was doing the commentary who thought that Phil Davis would be good at providing special comments from the sideline was a bit of a goose. And obviously they didn't do any screen testing on Phil Davis before he got in there, because I found his commentary as dry as a bucket of Saharan sand. It just did nothing for me. Plenty of people commented about the same thing. Wasn't a good look. Don't do it again.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah, man.
You realise he's on almost every week on either Fox or Channel 7, right?
Yeah, it doesn't mean I have to like it.
No, that's true. I actually think you're exactly right. I actually think he's very dry and he's very mundane. But if you actually listen to what he talks about, he actually has some really good insights. He's just boring to listen to.
Yeah, but if I want boring or mundane but insightful, I want Paul Roos. He does nothing for me, and
Good player, though.
I'd have him.
Yeah, me too.
You'd all have him.
Yeah, we need him at this time in our lives in the back line.
True, very true. However, there is one clown to end all clowns this week. One clown to rule them all. Who is it?
Okay.
Drum roll. Go.
Don Pike, my favourite, my champion. What is with your selections? You drop Gibbs, who averages 40 possessions a game. Sure, he's not tackling, but neither does the rest of your team. They don't tackle. That is your team, Don Pike, the way you are coaching them. You drop Eddie Betts. Even the Adelaide Crows fans want to have your head in a girder. They want to take you down, mate. You do not drop the prodigal son. You do not drop the best player and the most inspiring player you have. What are you thinking? He goes out and dominates the SANFL. Gibbs dominates week in, week out in the SANFL. Yet you drop them. Is Gibbs a scapegoat? Is Eddie Betts a scapegoat? You can't drop Tex Walker because he's your favourite, yet he's done nothing for most of the season. Maybe it's the midfield, Don. Maybe, just maybe, it's the way you actually coach, Don. It's time for you to go. You are a clown.
And while I sit here and ponder what a scapegoat actually is, we'll move on to the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Sorry, I meant scapegoat, listeners. I was just a bit worked up on it.
Oh dear, and that's what happens when you make football nerds angry. Good, the bad, and the ugly, Steve. You got a good?
Josh, my good. What more can I say? Jordan Dawson, #GOAT.
Fair enough. Well, you and I are in agreement here because I've got Jordan Dawson as well. Made a few jokes over the last few weeks about his shiny yellow pineapple boots, and clearly those boots were made for walking and dancing. So anyway, Jordan Dawson is good, it seems.
#he's great.
#GOAT.
Yes.
Your bad, mate?
My bad. This is not a Swans bad. This is actually a Hawks bad.
Ooh.
The crowd at the Hawks versus Brisbane game on the weekend. Now, I went to that game because it was in Tassie, Josh.
Yeah.
They were actually booing the prodigal son in Luke Hodge. He
Really?
was the Yes.
Wow.
They were booing the pantomime villain just because they were getting beat. I could not believe it. It's the first time I've been to a game. He's played down here twice before, yet they booed him.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's something I would never have thought would happen.
No, that'd be like Eddie Betts going to somebody else and then the Adelaide crowd booing him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
Don Pike.
His ex-teammate did grab him on the stalk at one stage, though, so there was that. But
yeah, that was quite funny.
Yeah. Oh, look, that's interesting, but quite frankly, it's unsurprising. It is Hawthorn. My
That's
bad
true.
is the Suns, and I don't mean the Suns are bad because, well, they are, but my bad for them is actually the fact they lost that game because they had a red-hot go this week. I mean, the fact that probably the most entertaining game to watch this week was Essendon versus the Suns, says how good that game probably was. But for that team to come so close to winning and put on a really good score, 96 points, and then to go down by 10 points, that must be just heartbreaking for them. And I just thought that was bad because they deserved more. I thought they deserved a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I actually missed that game, and I actually like watching the Gold Coast Suns play, and I'm a bit disappointed I missed it because it's probably going to be one of the games that they played the best that they've played all year, except for that St Kilda first round.
Yeah,
I actually like the Suns.
They have patches where you go, you're missing too many key players, but you can see what they're trying to achieve, and you just think that give them 3, 4, or 5 years if they're not close down and move to Tassie. There's still a spark there, and I think people need to cut that club some slack and realise that the Suns didn't just spawn themselves into being. Their problems largely lie with the AFL and Simon Lethlean. And now that Lethlean's gone and he's now at St Kilda, he can stuff that club up instead. So
that's right. Josh, going back to your Tassie comment, that's not going to happen. Mark my words. This is what's going to happen in Tasmania.
Yep.
And I'll state this now. The 29th of the 7th, 2019. North Melbourne will play 8 games here for the next 5 years. In 2026, there will be 2 new teams in the AFL. Every team will play each other once. One of those teams will be Tassie, and one of those teams will either be Cairns or there'll be a team out of Canberra.
Yep.
That's what will happen.
You don't think they'll put one in Darwin instead?
No, I don't. Oh, they might do Darwin. Maybe Cairns or Darwin.
Man, this is a real segue, but 2026, did you just pluck that out of fat air, or what do you know?
What do I know? I have my insiders, and there's the reason. The North Melbourne contract ends in 2021. The North Melbourne and Hawthorn contracts end in 2021. The deal that is going to be put in front of North Melbourne and Hawthorn is that they will have to play a minimum of 8 games in Tasmania. There will only be one team that plays games in Tassie.
Yeah, Hawthorn won't take that.
That's exactly right. Hawthorn won't. North Melbourne will, because they've been guaranteed that they'll play 8 home games in Tasmania. They'll get their other 5 games in Melbourne, but they've also been guaranteed the Collingwood deal where they'll get to play another minimum 5 games in Melbourne on top of that.
Mm. Yep.
That will be, so they will actually get 8 home games plus in Tassie, 5 home games in Melbourne, plus another 5 guaranteed games in Melbourne. That's 18 games a year. It's a Godfather deal, and then you only have to travel 5 times out of it.
Fair enough.
That will be that, and then what they'll do is then they'll put it to North Melbourne about to actually coming down here permanently. North Melbourne will say no. They'll put in 2 teams, and that's when there'll be 20 teams in the competition. Everyone will play each other once. When does the TV rights deal end, Josh?
Oh, I'm going to assume 2026, saying what you just said.
2025, Josh. So the new one will be ready for 2026, where it'll actually be 20-team competition, 19 home and away games, plus finals.
Yeah. And then they'll I mean, if just going with your hypothetical, if they go with something like that, they'll end up with a like some kind of conference system, NFL style, I imagine, to make that work. Interesting. It's an interesting idea. It's funny you say that Tassie wouldn't get its own team, its own outright team in that way. I went to a function a couple of weeks ago where Rocket Eade was there, and Rocket Eade, being a Taswegian, was talking about football in Tasmania, and he said one of the big barriers down there is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a bit of a divide between Northern Tassie and South Tassie, and they can't even decide. He doubts they'll be able to decide between the two halves of the state who will barrack for the team, who's willing to travel for it, and there's a bit of a community level issue about whether they would actually get support for a team in that way or not. That's certainly not. They're going to base them in Hobart and then move them to Launceston for half their games a year to keep the other half of the country. Might as well be a country. The other half of the country happy. So interesting.
Yeah, this is what's going to happen. They'll play 5 in Hobart. They'll play 5 in Launceston. They'll play 1 on the West Coast. The reason being there is a northwest versus north versus south divide. We have it in our state basketball competition is set up that way. So we have 3 different regions, and then they come together. Our schooling system is set up that way. Our political system is set up that way. I can guarantee that's what will happen with the football team as well.
Fair enough. You heard it here first. We'll round this out with your ugly.
My ugly.
I'm not saying you're ugly.
Oh, well, thank you, Josh. I am a bit ugly at times.
Yeah, I've seen you after a few beers, and yes, you are.
Anyway, my ugly for this week, and I'll go with just simply this. The Hawks' kicking was deplorable on the weekend.
It was shite, wasn't it?
It was. I've never seen anyone kick so poorly. You were talking about Ronk. Did you see what Mitchell Lewis did on Saturday?
I didn't, but I heard about this from a mate of mine who was going apoplectic about how bad his team's playing at the moment.
Oh, God. I just could not believe it. He was on the corner of the goal square. He kicked it and it almost hit the point post. This was from a set shot, not from rush.
All right.
He had another one 35 metres out directly in front. Couldn't kick it. He's got the greatest hands. You should see him. He can take a mark like nobody's business, but he can't kick to save himself. How he's keeping Jared Ruffhead out of the team, I do not know.
Well, Mitchell Lewis, honorary clown.
Yes.
My ugly is...
This is sad.
Yes, it is. Dale Morris comes back from an ACL reconstruction in shades of Alex Johnson, went out and popped the ACL again, and he's off for his 3rd knee reco. And Dale Morris has been such a legendary player for them. A real sort of clubman, heart and soul kind of guy. Played under duress in the 2016 grand final. As much as I hate the Dogs, I actually had quite a bit of respect for what Dale Morris did that day. And that was sad, and a guy like him, he deserved better than what happens this week. So just that situation's ugly.
Yeah, I agree, Josh, and I actually feel really sorry for Dale Morris, and I'm sorry to actually hear that, but I guess it's football, and we had it with AJ, and I'm just really sorry, because he is one of the true AFL footballers who I like. Yep. I really like Dale Morris, and I like the way he goes about the game.
Yep, so do I, and on that sad, depressing note, we might call it a night. So, Steve, thanks for joining me, and Justin, thanks for having a headache so that you didn't show up tonight and make us do all the work. This was going to be the first night in months where all 3 of us were going to show up online at the same time, and he decided to go and have a little headache, so he misses out.
That's right. He missed out on the rants. I'm sure he would have loved it, Josh.
As always, people can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the names Swans Blog, SwansCast, and SwansCast Extra. We'll be back sometime later this week to review the round 20 game against the Giants. Until then, go Swannies.
Go the Swannies.